Hello, good people, and welcome to a very special holiday episode of Off the Deep End. We've made ourselves merry by making ourselves miserable this season with some beloved Kuso classics. Joining me as sometimes is Chris Zombie Pie Redacted,
Hello.
the skull taker of this group.
I promise to be on my best behavior with Braden today because of guests, because he threatened to send me to the Shadow Realm if I behave like I normally do.
By the way, I'm Braden, Arbitrary Water Redacted, the Golg man-eater of this operation. But we have guests. Joining us once again on this very festive Kusolstice. We have Cassidy from the Bad Game Hall of Fame, the R-Ball, the undefeated.
Hello.
Of this podcast.
I come bearing gifts for your Kusolstice celebration.
But Cassidy, you didn't just bring a gift. You brought us the gift of friendship and companionship because we have Sid here as well. Sid Menon.
Hello. It's me. I brought a gift as well. The
Gorbad Ironclaw of this podcast. You see, those are the four lords being added in the new Total War Warhammer 3 patch that drops. And instead of playing that, I played all of the games we brought today.
Yep.
Well, gifts are meant to be opened, enjoyed, and then returned to the store promptly thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I in fact returned a thing to a store no less than 30 minutes ago.
Very good.
You got your money back.
I got my $47 back. But we'll get to that when we get to that. This Kusolstice, we decided to go back to the potluck format, so everyone brought a game, everyone brought a gift for the rest of the cast to enjoy. And we're gonna start with the barn burner of the bunch. Cassidy, what the fuck did you bring?
Well, has anyone here ever heard of Garfield the Cat? I know it's an obscure little media franchise.
Bootleg Heathcliff.
Yeah.
Yes, precisely. You got it in one. Does anyone remember the Garfield movies? Not the most recent one, not the newest one, but
there's this indie movie actor in those called Bill Murray.
Yes, as the voice of Garfield. There was a second one of those. It was called Garfield 2 Royal Adventure. It took place in England, I think.
Yes, Garfield, the Tale of Two Kitties.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the... I may have blown the lead here. I may have... Garfield 2 Royal Adventure is the name of the video game tie-in. Not just any video game tie-in. The Java 2 Mobile Edition tie-in. The JRPG tie-in to Garfield 2, A Tale of Two Kitties.
I went to that Garfield movie, the first Bill Murray one.
I did too.
With one of my friends for his birthday. That was his birthday that year. And we all came home disappointed. I never saw the second one.
I used to have a Garfield shrine as a youngin', as a child, as a teenager, if we're being real here, and I kept my Garfield ticket stub for seeing the first of the Bill Murray Garfield movies in theater, and then within 2 years of that, I never saw this movie in theaters. I never saw this movie, period, the Squeakquel movie, and within 2 years I had taken down the shrine because I realized just how embarrassing it was to have one of those.
Alas.
But my love for Garfield,
poor Garfield
remains. And it's mostly irony poisoned, tinged at this point.
Yeah.
But even with all that in mind, this Garfield 2 JRPG was just too good an opportunity to pass up. I know you like your role-playing games here, and
I love role-playing games, and role-playing games on pre-smartphone devices are the ones that make me the most enthusiastic.
So should I get into this game? Should I?
Yes.
Where to begin with this game, I guess, is the real question here. This is a 2006 release developed by one Nostromo ICT, published by Uclick LLC. And it is a abridged retelling, I suppose. A RPG-ified retelling of the events of that movie, I presume. Garfield is your primary player character, and you're also assisted in parts by Winston the dog, who is your faithful butler. I guess the plot of the movie, and I guess the plot of the game by proxy, is that Garfield and John go on a trip to England, and there is a royal cat called Prince the Twelfth, who happens to bear a striking resemblance to Garfield in comedic fashion. And the poor prince's owner has just recently passed, and he is the lord of an estate, you see. And in his will, he decrees that his cat shall inherit the palace and all the properties, and so on and so forth. And then there's this Lord Dargis, who's the antagonist of the movie, who feels betrayed because the person he worked with, his colleague, has given all of his property and deeds and money to a cat. So, reasonable, I would think. I think it's reasonable to get a little pissy about that. And so he tries to basically, get the prince out of there, tries to remove him from the picture, so to speak. And just so happens at the same time he does that, Garfield enters the picture, and in a case of mistaken identity, is mistaken for the prince. And so kicks off a wacky series of events where Garfield has to protect himself from Dargis and his array of monsters that exist in the mansion. Spiders, rats, other assorted. I think there's a bull at one point. And again, how much of this is in the movie? I'm assuming all of it. I'm assuming this is a faithful one-to-one recreation of the events of the movie here.
None of us have seen it, so there's no way to know.
So, we'll just have to assume at this point. So the game plays out. It begins with you already having your identity mistaken for. So you start as Garfield. You're escorted to the prince's room. You meet Winston the dog, and Winston gives you the skin. He says, all right, there's this Lord Dargis guy we got to watch out for. You have to help us find the prince. And if you do, you'll be rewarded with lots of lasagna. And so your epic adventure begins. And it is a top-down, classic style of JRPG. And you start to wander around. They're not random encounters. There are encounters where you will walk up to various critters and creatures and engage them in turn-based battles. Instead of swiping at them and killing them, eviscerating them, eating them, as a cat might do with spiders and rats. I've seen it firsthand. Instead, the goal is to frighten them. So it's like the opposite of Toontown Online, the MMO from back in the day, where the goal was to prank, to play goofs and gags. Now it is frightening them. And it plays out as a traditional, NES era JRPG would. You have your range of attacks, you have items you pick up in inventory, usable items in combat for healing and attack purposes, and it is surprisingly competent, in my opinion. It's very brief. I spared all of you in the time department here by ensuring this game maybe takes an hour and a half to 2 hours to complete. So you're welcome. But it takes some twists and turns. At a certain point, you switch perspectives. You play as the prince for a while. You do a little bit of a stealth reconnaissance mission. At a certain point, you get two other animals to help you stack up, fill out a suit of armor, which basically lets you tank damage and run roughshod on enemies for a certain section of the game. There's leveling all the way up to level 10, I believe. Yeah, there's a surprising amount they pack into those 2 hours. More than I expected going into it. The first time I had played this game, I had done a little Garfield extravaganza stream celebrating Garfield's birthday. We played just a little bit of a bunch of his games, and this one really stuck out. And going into it for this, I really did not expect it to be fleshed out in any capacity. I thought it was going to be a linear scroll of hallways, eventually leading to some sort of conclusion, and the leveling would just be superficial. But no, they expected you to do some grinding in this game.
There is a shocking amount of effort put into a licensed phone tie-in game.
There are side quests.
You
can do a side quest for a ghost.
Yeah.
You can...
Wait, I felt that was a main quest because you need to open that avenue no matter what, and the only
you might be right.
The only way you can get that ghost out is by opening that door.
There are side-coded quests.
Side-coded.
Yes.
Let's say adjacent quests. They're adjacent to what is the main thing. It might have the single greatest start screen I've ever seen my entire life in a video game.
What's
when you
the picture
boot the
of
game
Garfield staring at you?
Just Garfield staring at you. And it's a low-res JPEG with the title card. And then I looked it up. I looked at the game files. It is MIDI music, which is incredible.
So it's a treat.
Cass, you looked this up. When I played this game, and when I even streamed this game, people were absolutely convinced that this was made using RPG Maker, but apparently that's not the
There wasn't
case.
an RPG Maker for Java 2 Mobile Edition.
No, I mean...
At a certain point, like, this stuff is simplistic enough to program. I'm sure Nostromo just threw something together. I'm sure they were J2ME experts and could probably cobble together something like this in pretty short order. It doesn't strike me as necessarily needing to be an RPG Maker game. I think just this style of RPG is so easily flagged that people might be conflating it with, something that is so stock, like, RPG Maker games tend to be in a lot of cases. But I have no reason to believe this was any sort of, like, licensing or usage of a pre-existing engine.
It seems like this is just, like, a tool set that may have even existed in J2ME. People sometimes forget, but it was... I would say the de facto programming tool for making mobile games pre-iOS, pre-Android, and even, I would say, J2ME even predates, like, Symbian to a degree. But it became the market standard for cell phone gaming because, A, the SDK was free, and then, B, Sun, eventually Oracle Systems, did not charge you a licensing
Also,
cost.
I do have...
They were just excited.
I screenshotted the credits to the game, just in case. And I'm noticing now, NOSE engine version 2.87. I don't know what that matches to. I don't know if you can find other games on the nose engine. It's a little on the nose, if you ask me. Yeah. But there you go. That's your credit.
I did some research on the developer. It seems like they're Czech. And they were working with Uclick, which was previously they were really well known for not doing just mobile phone games, but like web applications. And they also ended up buying a huge portion of the newspaper comic strip industry. Like they ended up merging with Universal Press Syndicate, and they're now known as like Andrews McNeil Syndication. And if you're reading a newspaper comic strip, Uclick basically, or what is now the version of Uclick, basically owns all of it.
Has fingers in those pies.
And the game they made after Garfield, because they don't have a lot of games to their name, which leads me to believe that I think they were a support studio for Uclick's gaming division, but they didn't. They may have ghostwritten stuff. The other game they did was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game based off of the old Cartoon Network animated series, not the original one, the one that was like more Teen Titans-like. Looks exactly the same.
I'd buy that.
It looks exactly
once you have that template in place, it's very easy to just plug and play different sprites, different elements, and so forth.
So, Cass, why is this Kuso, I guess?
That's a good question. Especially because I said it was competent, didn't I? But then again, am I to be believed? Am I to be taken at my word? Let's just say that the premise is certainly Kuso adjacent, I suppose, by your definition of it. That you don't expect much going into a Garfield game. The fact that it's so brief that it really doesn't utilize the RPG mechanics to its fullest, in the sense that, like, yeah, you can level up to level 10-ish. The cutscenes are incredibly janky. Like the ending credits are just like a 128 pixel screen of John proposing to Liz the veterinarian. Spoilers, by the way, for the movie and the game, I suppose. And it's just crusty JPEG bullshit. It's the progression I have some issues with. Believe it or not, I have some issues with this Garfield JRPG, and that a lot of the areas are very samey. The areas where you go to combat the other animals, the other creatures, are basically the same set of dark and dreary hallways, Just not a lot of variety. Like a surprising amount of variety, but also just short of having enough variety to really justify this package existing.
There are like 5 different encounter types outside of the boss battles, which there are only, practically speaking, 2 bosses. That sequence...
That last boss is wild, by the way.
That sequence where you're the king and you're by yourself was... It's by far the worst part of the game because
they start you back from level 1.
It's already a slow game because you can only have 2 characters in your party. When you are one person dealing 1 damage,
and you're fighting 3 or 4 enemies
one
at
target,
a time in some cases,
it basically becomes like the ultimate game of rock paper scissors, where you're desperately trying to find the one attack that has the advantage against the enemy, so is that you can just one-shot them. And if you're not one-shotting
there are
them,
certain attacks that just whiff.
Yeah, and if you're not one-shotting them, you whiff, and it's a wasted
now, mercifully,
turn, and you're
when you do
gonna
die,
and have
because
to
this is a
restart
game
the entire
ostensibly for
sequence.
children, there's no penalty to it except having to be reset back. You go to the nearest bed, you wake up with full health, and you keep all your XP, I believe, and all your items, so you can just grind up against that as much as need be. So, at the very least, they're not punishing you in any sort of extraneous way.
But the attacks are not... There is some sort of weird elemental coding because, like, the newspaper-based attacks with Garfield have an advantage against, I think, the bug
Well, yeah, you
enemies.
swat a bug with a newspaper.
And then the dog's farts are really good with certain enemies, but not others. It's like there's some sort of, like, Pokemon elemental or maybe just rock, paper, scissors.
It's not very
mechanic to
clearly
this.
indicated. You're supposed to intuit that, you
It's
swap bugs with a newspaper, and then claws would work on, an animal of equal size that's not up in the air. So only ground-based enemies will take damage from a claw attack or what have you. So there is like some weird internal logic and consistency to it. It's just you have to trial and error the first couple times to figure out what works and what doesn't on particular enemies.
The final boss in that game.
Prince Dargus, Lord Dargus himself. And he takes Liz as hostage, if I'm to recall correctly.
And he has a shotgun.
Yeah, he straight up shoots you. At that point in the game, you play as both Garfield and the Prince. That is your 2-person party. Did you figure out how to win that fight?
Yeah, you're supposed to stun like Dargus with the Prince's like I stun you ability.
Attack.
The one status effect that this game has that actually works. It's in specifically one battle, and it is the final boss. You're supposed to stun lock the evil guy while you beat up his little cronies.
Yeah, it got to the
then
point.
You can do damage to him.
It got to the point where I stun locked
Otherwise,
him.
he just one-shots you.
And just kept stun locking him every turn, and he stopped summoning additional ads to attack me. So it just became an endurance test of going through this admittedly very slow, torturous even animations, and just waiting for him to eventually die. And then you're rewarded with that credits roll and that one screenshot. And you also unlock an arena mode.
Well, you're also forgetting the special codes that we were supposed to redeem on
garf2.com,
which is we tried. I desperately
and it wouldn't
tried
work
to do
anyway
the
with
Wayback
the
Machine.
codes
I couldn't
anyway.
find any
Because,
archived version of
that
the
would
site.
require like filling in a form or what have you.
Yeah.
That would probably like do a sort of like check through the HTML or whatever. I don't know the website words, but I just assume it wouldn't work.
But just
in ways that similar websites have not worked.
An
on
absolutely
archive.org.
bizarre game. Whoever figured out how to do J2ME emulation today, God bless you.
If I can,
Lord's work.
If I can
one's
suggest
gonna
an
do
app called Kavi Break, KAHVI Break, it is a full library, a front end for accessing J2ME games in a very convenient searchable database and downloader. So you can absolutely go play the game there. It'll assemble itself for you. I don't think anyone is really holding up their sword for the rights for these games or anything, and it's worth a shot. It's worth a play. It's very brief. It won't take much of your time.
It's gonna take maybe an hour and a
I'd
half.
love to see the rights holders actually try to argue that Garfield 2 Royal Adventure is a
good.
potential future source of income for them in court.
They're gonna buy back the Garf 2 domain, and then they're gonna really get this rolling.
Bill Murray is going to come to your house
and mix a drink for you. As he often does.
Yeah.
Just the one though. What does he do? He does like a shitty cocktail. I don't remember. I just know Bill Murray's an asshole.
I just remember that joke from Zombieland.
I have 2 regrets.
2
One
Royal
red
Adventures
card.
specifically.
Yeah.
He was actually lead programmer on it.
Yeah.
That's the big
can't
reveal in the credits.
You know, that's why he's the funniest man of the 1980s.
It's like the most paid man of the 1980s.
Yeah,
He got paid.
he got
Can't
paid.
blame him for that. Can't blame him for that.
So we're gonna
Yeah.
rank this game? Is this does this even?
Oh.
do we want to
earn a
rank
place
all
on
of
the
them
list?
all at once, or do we want to rank them one at a time?
Let's do it all at once at
Yeah,
the
okay.
end. That would probably.
All right,
be...
let's do it all at the end. All right, but yeah, speaking of getting paid, I was not getting paid enough to play this next game. Chris, tell me about the thing you brought, because the thing you brought hurt me a little bit
You
inside.
don't like bad versions of the bump system? Okay, so I picked Makai Hakenden Shada. Obviously, based off of how I pronounced this is a PC engine outside of Japan. The TurboGrafx 16 RPG that never came out of the United States. It is by Data East, a name forever etched in those of us that have engaged in retro gaming, in a purveyor, a Hall of Fame worthy studio when it comes to Kuso titles. And they've obviously made some good stuff, but boy howdy,
They made some okay stuff.
boy howdy, the stuff that
So,
was bad was
When
mwah.
you told
Data
me about this
East.
game, you told me not to look
Yep.
anything up.
I told you to not look up what
And
makes this
then
truly
I
Kuso.
started playing it, and then I realized why you told me not to look anything up.
So conceptually, on the piece of
Because-
paper, what is the deal with Makai Hakanen Shada?
Yeah.
Well, it's based off of a novel. It's based off of a book. It is based off of a book that I did not bother to read. I believe I looked it up on my notes. It is Nanso Satomi Hakaden. That's the novel series that this game is based off of. And Data East, their bread and butter was making adaptions of pre-existing properties, though they did indeed make games that were not based on pre-existing properties. They were also one of the earliest examples of a Japanese video game studio having a subsidiary that was almost completely independent in the United States. That U.S. studio later went on to become a name that you've probably heard of, Marvelous Incorporated. So to a degree, Data East is kind of, sort of still alive. It's complicated, it's messy, it's kind of like what is truly SNK. Moving on.
Keep that torch lit.
So, the story is simple. We are in a world of feudal Japan with special spirits, samurai, animals, all sorts of weird, wacky, feudal Japanese hijinks. A long time ago, there was an evil, terrible person, terrible evil spirit, Tamaza Suza, and they plunged the entire world into terror. Hate it when that happens. Now, 8 special warriors known as Hakenshi inherited some sort of righteousness, or basically special powers from some sort of, let's say, Shinto-coded Fushihime abilities that were sealed from some sort of mysterious spirit-filled jewel, and then they locked him away in some sort of crystal, and in the world we inhabit now, seems like our guy broke out of the seal. Aw, shit. Evil guy broke out of crystal. Gotta get the same 8 legendary warriors that might have some sort of progeny or descent with those people. Sounds pretty normal. So what? I'm just gonna beat around the bush. So the combat here is very similar to a very well-venerated franchise known as Ys. having a bump combat system in which the combat is determined based off of you running into the enemy, and then the game does a very basic combat roll. It looks at your attack number and defense number, and then looks at the attack and defense number and level of the enemy. Not necessarily something that is in and of itself Kuso, though the way that it plays here is dog shit. What makes this truly Kuso is that this is, maybe, quite possibly, one of the most egregious trace jobs I have ever seen in video game history. This game is literally a trace over of Ys, ancient Ys vanished. In fact, this is a huge point that I told everyone not to read it. This is a huge point that Hardcore Gaming 101's review just immediately points out, that the entire starting world is a literal trace job of the starting world.
They one-to-one copied Ys 1.
So
that's audacious. That's bold.
Made it worse.
I
I almost kind of respect it.
forced you all to interact with something that is genuinely a plagiary. Now, Data East kinda sorta did this before. In fact, they are later going to get sued by Capcom because a game of theirs, Fighter's History, pretty much traced Street Fighter, though mechanically it was very much different. And it leads to Capcom USA Incorporated versus Data East Corp. One of the most important federal court cases related to video games, because it famously established that video game concepts, functional rules are considered scenes affaire. Basically, you cannot copyright game mechanics. So, you have as much right to the Z-targeting system as Nintendo, or Square Square Triangle. You have as much right to that as the Dynasty Warrior franchise. So that happens after this. Data East, I think, also knows that they can copy Nihon Falcom, because Nihon Falcom is going through one of its darkest periods in its corporate history. And the records here are a little murky. It seems like the way that Nihon Falcom was treating some of the core members of the Ys team and how they were compensating them was not great. Tell me if you've heard this before. A Japanese corporation is overworking its employees and paying them shit wages.
Perish the
So
thought.
they all decided to leave.
In the late 80s?
They all decided to leave to start their own studio. We're not going to get into that, but Data East copies their homework because they realize that they don't have the money to sue them. So, in theory, maybe, possibly. I'm not accusing Data East of any wrongdoing, but Jesus Christ, the game's opening entire environment, where it's that first opening area where you're just fighting those giant fire chickens and those, I think, dogs. That's literally a part of
played
Ys
through
1,
the
right,
first
Brayden?
2 Ys games, I believe last year, or maybe, I don't know, time. And let me tell you, Ys 1 still kicks ass.
I can testify to that as well, as having played only the first
it
Ys.
turns out those 2 games still pretty good. It's almost like that Falcom has a pretty good track record.
Well, luckily though, for Data East,
Trails
like Ys one, that's not really ported that much stuff, like compared to other games.
Yeah, luckily it was pretty on an island unto itself.
Ys 1 is, this obscure PC 98 game.
And Windows 95, Windows 98, and NES, and
TurboGrafx
Sega
CD.
Master System.
But Brayden, if it was just a plagiary, I wouldn't have picked it. They somehow plagiarized and then fucked up the execution, because this game plays like shit. It's the worst version. I played Lagoon on the SNES.
The hitboxes.
Lagoon plays better than fucking this game.
Oh, that's a damnation. That's a damning claim.
How's the art compare?
Leveling is so much slower than Ys and Lagoon. The music is a plagiary, so it doesn't even have the nice Lagoon music. And then the combat, the hitboxes are off. They're terrible. Like, it's a bump combat system, and the boxes don't feel right. So it still has the whole system where if you face an enemy and you hit them face on, if you are below their level, you take damage. If you're above them, you don't take damage. If you're above level of an enemy, you don't get experience points, but you get money. So you do need to grind them out to get money to buy equipment. But all of the RPG stuff, Cass, this game has a Hoshiwo Murahito moment where you go into a forest and there's a riddle. It says, turn around and go forward. That's all you
like
get.
Michael Jackson, like moonwalk.
If you
turn
move
360
forward,
degrees and...
it's an infinite loop. It just spawns you at the entrance of the forest again. If you go backwards, you exit, and you reset the puzzle. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go up to a sign, pivot, turn around, and walk into a tree that looks no different than all of the trees in the
You have to
fucking
turn 360
forest.
degrees
And
and
that
walk
leads you
away,
to the
yeah.
secret path to the ninjas.
Yes.
Yeah.
For an 89 game, that is not completely unexpected,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean, that's...
No.
This was the era of just walking into walls and stuff and hoping that
Yeah.
something would happen.
But
Yeah,
Braden,
no,
it
it's
just
like what if
plays like
it's
dog
East,
shit.
but the hitboxes are terrible?
The first boss is a 3-headed Cerebus, and it was kicking my ass because it's one of those bosses where it's just jumping up and down, and I got it to the point where I was so broken as a person that I figured out the exact line on the pixels where he was not crossing that line, so I could park my little avatar right up to that line and not take damage. It's just hopping back and forth like there are they didn't program the enemies right. There's another part where it's like, did this team not know how to make an RPG? You finish the first true dungeon with a boss. You go back to town. You have a shit ton of money. You're thinking, oh, right, I'm going to buy all of the equipment that I did not buy. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to spend all of my money. And then you go up to the path. You talk to a quest giver. And then he sends you to the other side of a path. And then there's a person that you talk to who then immediately gives you new equipment that was not accessible before, that immediately negates everything that you just spent all your money
That's nice.
on.
Yeah, this all sounds like
Oh, and my favorite part. So the entrance to that dungeon with the first boss, you have to buy a sword that costs $800 in-game, or yen, or whatever. An insane amount of money because the enemies are only dropping $2 to $5 per kill. So you have to grind to get 800 gold to buy a sword that you then give to a guy that then opens the door. And if you go through this dungeon and you take damage and you want to go rest in the inn, he returns and you have to buy the sword
wow,
again.
this sounds really well designed. I just got to the part where it was a bad trace job of Ys, and I'm like, oh, this is horrible.
So 2 seconds in.
Yeah.
So yeah, game's bad. Somehow the Japanese Wii Virtual Console re-released this game,
Yeah, of course.
but in Japan only. Okay.
It does seem like there's an English patch available. At the
Yeah,
very
it's
least, and
fully translated. It's got a pretty good translation. That game
I'll
has
be availing myself of
that game has an English translation, but not not Hoshimo Miro Hito or goddamn Tenkai Makia. Like,
Hoshio Mirihito got its
Yeah.
translation. It got its
God,
fixed,
that's
updated
right.
translation.
good. Thank God.
You know, yeah. Oh boy. Speaking of games that have recently gotten fan translations, I watched you and Sharky play some of their ancient Roman Power of Dark Side.
Oh, it's an instant classic.
And that might be something we need to inflict upon ourselves for this podcast.
Oh, it's a treat.
Thanks, Aria.
Because that thing looks
It's a treat. I had a lot of fun with it. For all the wrong reasons, but that's still fun. That's still technically entertainment value. So
yeah,
I'm glad I played
it's
it.
true. Yeah. So, does anyone have any closing thoughts on Tenkai Makio?
Makai Hakenden Shada.
Makai
Tenkai Makio's
Hakenden.
good, if I could figure out what he was saying. Game bad.
How's the graphics?
All right.
It's terrible. For a TurboGrafx 16 game? It looks terrible.
All right.
It's no Rondo of
No.
Blood. All right. Speaking of a Rondo of Blood, hey, I'm just nailing these
Tenuous
segues.
transition. Tenuous segue.
Yeah.
Kind of wondering where you're going to go
Speaking
with
of
this.
tenuous segues, I have tenuously segued my way into inflicting more nightmares upon my fellows in the form of an Elder Scrolls Legend Battlespire. Which people love that they're Elder Scrolls. They will never stop re-releasing Skyrim. Elder Scrolls 6 will come out in 2030 and they will still re-release Skyrim. But I'm here to tell you, not as one of those Morrowind hipsters, or even as someone who played Oblivion at the correct age for it to blow my mind. No, I come to you, hat in hand, to tell you about our Lord and Savior, The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall. And then I say, what if they use that engine to make a multiplayer-focused spin-off?
What? Didn't they try that
No.
before, but made a spin-off that
No,
was Tomb
okay,
Raider?
so Redguard was after Battlespire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Battlespire came out in late 97, November or December of 97, so a year and change after Daggerfall. It is the last Elder Scrolls game that Julian LeFay worked on, who was the lead on both Arena and Daggerfall.
And also was responsible for composing for a little game by the name of Sword of Sodan.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, Arena was going
classic.
to be multiplayer.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, that's not such a good idea." But then they made Daggerfall, and like this time it will be a good idea.
Yeah, this time it will be a good idea. So I find these two I find all of the side games for the Elder Scrolls series fascinating, between this and Redguard, which I watched Chris play. It's kind of a bad Tomb Raider clone, but it has moxie as far as storytelling and like ambitions. But yeah, it's bad Tomb Raider. And then there's that N-Gage game that will inevitably be streamed by me at some point, assuming N-Gage emulation ever gets there.
N-Gage emulation is fully there.
Yeah. It
Thank
absolutely
God.
is there.
Oh, good. Please look forward to an Elder Scrolls Travel Shadow Key playthrough.
4-player co-op.
I could get 3 people to play that with me.
I don't know if the netplay fully works yet, but it does. It did have 4-player N-Gage Arena online co-op.
Yeah.
I can confirm that.
Oh, yes. Similarly, an Elder Scrolls Legend Battlespire you can play has, I believe it does have some cooperative function, but I was not willing to go through the hoops and the hurdles necessary to get other human beings to play that game with me. So instead, I played the game single player. So what's everyone's favorite part of Elder Scrolls? Is it, the big open world exploration, the wide variety of characters you can make, the jank?
It's modding every character to be naked. I mean, sorry, the spells. You can have spells in both hands.
Cass, I have great news. This is before they made Elder Scrolls woke.
Oh, very good. Finally, the way it was meant to be.
Which is to say, the paper dolls for female characters just have their titties out.
Oh, hell yes.
It's before they made it woke. So the Red Guards aren't in Battle Spires?
No, they are. Yeah. No Argonians or Khajiit, though.
Weak.
So, because that would have required modeling.
Now, admittedly, when you're making a dude, he is in just like a loincloth man thong.
A loincloth, yeah.
While you're making him.
Yeah.
A little something for the ladies.
But if you make a lady, she just got her tits out until you put some armor on her. And it uses a modified version of the Daggerfall engine. So it uses similar skill system, similar pros and cons and limitations. But it's using a point buy system because you could also bring those characters into multiplayer, but it's not. It is a linear dungeon crawl. They took the Elder Scrolls, a series known for its large scale, and they said, what if instead it was a early polygonal 3D dungeon crawler like Daggerfall, a game known for being stable and
You can't even say that sentence all the way without laughing, huh?
I love Daggerfall.
I love the part where you fall through the
Yeah.
floor and end up in the pit.
I love
Right?
a lot of things about Daggerfall. The Unity source port of Daggerfall is actually genuinely makes good choices as far as making it a much more playable game without, caveats. But Battlespire is instead an attempt to kind of merge the sensibilities of Daggerfall with the sensibilities of deathmatch FPSs of the era. Because this is this would be Quake 2 era. So everyone needs their deathmatch game, but it's a deathmatch game with dice rolls to hit. So I'm
reminded of a game that we talked about on here previously, A Descent to Undermountain.
It's not as dire as that.
To be fair, competitive dice rolls to hit. That's how D&D started, right? That's chainmail. So really, it's just a throwback.
Yeah, it's
more authentic.
It's a classic war game, and but so the actual thing is I have played enough of this game to get to the second floor of the dungeon, and it's very difficult. And it's very janky, and you have to make a character who can heal themselves, so you'd better tag restoration as one of your core or major skills, because you cannot rest, because the game is built around multiplayer. So in order to recover your health, you have to wait for your health to either very slowly regenerate, or cast a spell to heal yourself, or there are little gems that respawn that will restore your magic. But instead, a lot of this game is wandering through a dungeon in first person. It is handcrafted. It is not randomly generated. So it is closer to something like the main story dungeons of Daggerfall. But it's all 3D, which means there's some really good collisions. It's not like in Daggerfall, the enemies were still sprites. There were still a lot of I mean, that game is known for great collisions and falling through the floor.
So, I mean, you did play it in multiplayer, though, right? So, or did you?
I did not play it in multiplayer. So what the game is as a single-player experience is you are a battle mage of the Empire. You are trapped on the Battle Spire, which is a training ground that has been taken over by a Daedra Lord. I think it might be Molag Bal.
No, I thought you were held captive of Mehrunes
it's Mehrunes Dagon.
the same guy from 4.
Setting up Oblivion, 9 years early.
Again, if you ever want to encapsulate Bethesda as a studio, say what you will about their games, but they are a studio that always is highly ambitious. After they released Daggerfall, they started work on Battlespire, Redguard, and Morrowind, all at the same time, all with the same team that's just slowly getting bigger, but not that much bigger for a studio that's now trying to do 3 games, 2 of which are a complete deviation of what they've tried before. And then I think it was about a few years into it, they realized, okay, we can't actually do 3 games at the same time. So Morrowind's gonna we're gonna put pause on Morrowind. Yep. We're gonna do Battlespire and Redguard first.
Is the first of the Elder Scrolls games that Todd Howard directed.
Good old Todd.
Yeah, the young people, they love Todd Howard, and they love making the memes.
So I've seen, so I've heard.
And so there is some talking. You can, if you want, not dump your personality stat. And you can talk to these Dremora and these imps who will have such exciting things to say to you as, "I'm gonna kill you," ha 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 ha. And then you can respond with something. I would not recommend talking to them. I would recommend hitting them with a sword.
So they did answer, what would Doom be like if you could talk to the demons?
Yeah, exactly.
What
if you could talk to these creatures? And the answer is, it's very janky. It's not Descent to Undermountain levels of non-functional.
But what is?
But it is what is. It turns out nothing, because it's still at the bottom of our list. And so, it's one of those things where I just need to show it to people. But it's the kind of thing where also I can only show it to people who understand the context for why it's such a bizarre, weird deviation. Because otherwise they just go, oh, it's like a bad Quake clone.
But what makes it Kuso, Braden, where it's the right lovable bad?
I think what makes it the right lovable bad is the amount of platforming and navigation the game has. If you can get through Daggerfall with the levitate spell, and reach a point where you can just float everywhere. Not so much in this game. Instead, there is a innovative jumping indicator that very slowly shows where you will jump. You have to hold it down, and the indicator keeps going forward until it reaches the maximum allowed by your jump skill. But mostly, I just wanted to bring it because I needed the people to be reminded.
Show them how far we've come.
Of what you want, of what you want for Elder Scrolls 6,
Yeah, what exactly. Bring it back, Todd. Bring back Deathmatch, Todd.
So what you're saying is you're going to create an Elder Scrolls Online
I'm sure
account?
there is a 99% chance that the Battle Spire is directly referenced in an Elder Scrolls Online expansion, huh?
Yeah.
From what I gather about that, it has stuff that is just like named the same as something from the base game, but it's like different in some
they basically have
not so
used
subtle
that
ways.
game to like cover all of the lore that they haven't been able to tackle.
All of the interesting lore that is never actually in the Elder Scrolls games themselves finds a place in ESO.
Better than nowhere, I guess.
The sloats are visible.
Yeah.
The fact that the Argonians are actually being controlled by talking trees is made very explicit. The Khajiit being a culture centered around drug use is not danced around in online.
Right, but what Braid wants is Elder Scrolls 76.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Online. Always online.
I can't wait. So excited.
Full physics multiplayer.
So that's all I have to say about Battlespire.
A weird experiment.
It is a weird experiment. It is not completely irredeemable, but it is...
Bethesda took risks, and almost all of them didn't pan out.
There's a reason why they have not gone back to the Elder Scrolls Legend sub-series.
Yep.
Despite an attempt to branch that out into its own thing with this.
I think they maybe should have, though. Like, because that's a lot of the issue people have with Fallout 4 is your character is so defined at the start, and your main quest is so defined. It's like, I feel like they have to call this like Fallout Legends Boston or something. Like
that's
that
the
would
most
probably have
respectable
landed
part
better.
of Redguard, right? Is they said it thousands of years before Arena, so is that you actually see these like this side of the Elder Scrolls universe that you've never seen before, where it's actually ancient, and you have this character that's like interacting with people. And they're just, the books that you would read in the Elder Scrolls games are now just being told to you by, like, legends.
And you are interacting with the aftermath of Tiber Septim uniting the entire continent.
Problem with Redguard.
With his giant death robot.
And then you still have, like, the Dwemer present in the world, though it's just a few. It's a cool idea. Problem is this and
neither of them
Redguard
feel
and Battlespire play like shit.
Comfortable being the kinds of games that they are. Speaking of not feeling comfortable, Sid.
Oh boy.
I was not comfortable paying $47 American for a used copy of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, so I returned it to the store 30 minutes before we started recording this. Tell me about it.
You made the correct decision. So, I mean, to be fair, the first thing I thought of was something that you could easily play through PSP emulation or whatever. I'm sure it's also like $0 to buy an actual copy. Was Valhalla Knights 2 Battle Stance for PSP? Because I immediately thought of a joke, which is that, like, that gag where people say, I'm going to say a list of 10 things 100 times fast, and they just go like that. That's what combat's like in Valhalla Knights 2. So, but then the second thing I thought was, like, and it's like they added action combat, but it's not really that in-depth or enjoyable to control, so it would have been better off without it. And then I thought, wait a minute. I thought this about a game I finished. A game I finished including its DLC. And that would be Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 by Team Ninja.
Yes.
So that Ultimate Alliance 3 came out in 2018, so it's still like, the lead up to Endgame. Avengers is still red hot.
Or was it 2019? I'm looking it up and it says 2019.
Oh, 2019. Right. It was announced.
This is right after. Yeah, this is right after Endgame. So.
Yeah. So, right. It's 2019. Like so it's right after, but like it was announced. Like I think.
Yeah.
Adjacent to that, so like it's still like red hot. It's like it's not tied into the movies or anything. It just uses a lot of popular characters that are now popular because of the movies. And Team Ninja, like I had my issues with the 3D Ninja Gaiden games, but they're very well animated. They play really nicely. I think just the encounter design had some problems, but I really liked Neo 1 and 2. Directed by Hiroya Usuda, who co-directed Hyrule Warriors Legends on 3DS and Fire Emblem Warriors, which was on 3DS and Switch. And like, hey, those were like very solid, nicely performing, play really well Muso games on those platforms. So this isn't billed as being a Muso game. That's fine. But like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, like those were solid action RPGs. Like they're sort of like the logical endpoint of the consoleization of like Diablo, where now it's down to like, okay, you select your characters like powers. Well, in 1 you could select your powers, and 2 was down to just like they have 4 powers for each face button. And in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1, everyone has 1 slot for equipment, which was, to be honest, pretty bad. Most of it wasn't very interesting. Or it's like, oh, plus 3% radiation damage. I'm like, what? I don't even know if there's something called radiation damage in this game. I don't notice any difference at all. And then Ultimate Alliance 2 was like, okay, here's 1 piece of equipment for your whole team, which at that point I would say, why bother? But the combat actually had some interest to it. Like, there's different combos you can mix in with, like, a light attack, and if you do a heavy attack at this point, it's like, oh, this is a sweeping kick, so it's good for knocking down guys with shields, or like this is a grab, etc., etc. It's like they had different functions depending on the type of enemy you're fighting. So with all this, I'm like, oh, and Team Ninja's on it. It's like, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Imagine none of what I said, like, is a factor, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, the light and heavy attacks? Like, there's light attacks and a heavy attack. There's no combos anymore. No. You only have 4 powers. They did get rid of the one, like, gear slot, kind of, but instead they put in a different system, which is now everything's that 3% radiation damage thing, which is not how I wanted that to go. I don't want them to bring that back, but then also just make the numbers bigger. I guess, I think it looks better than the first 2 games because it has that, the first 2 games did that thing where they just directly translated sort of the flat comic book character designs with, like, realistic textures. And this one, like, oh, they got more cartoon shading, and the costumes have more detail. But that's it.
Yeah.
It plays bad.
I have a lot of fondness for the first Marvel Ultimate Alliance. It was one of those games that came with my 360.
Yeah,
I got that in Forza 2.
I think that a lot of the
didn't really care for
innate
Forza.
Nostalgia for Ultimate Alliance comes from the fact that first game it was like a solid year to 2 years. It was bundled with a 360 for free, and so people played a lot of it. I think that game in particular even outsold its predecessor or spiritual predecessor, which was the X-Men Legends franchise. But
yeah.
Raven made the first game, Vicarious Visions made the second game, and then Team Ninja made the third game. So I kind of always personally, as someone who was following it and then finally played this game, I kind of always viewed it as more of like an anthology action RPG. And that second game did simplify a lot. And knowing the dark history of Team Ninja equipment systems, oh my god, why do I have so much shit in my fucking inventory? Jesus Christ.
Here's the thing, though. I like that part of Neo because, like, the effects, like, one, you can ignore it if you want to. Like, really, the numbers in that don't make much of a difference. Like, it's more the weapon type and you're familiar with the movesets, etc., etc. But Ultimate Alliance 3 doesn't have that, and the items are less interesting. Like, in Neo, like, yeah, you could get something that's like, oh, plus 2%, whatever, but, like, also, if it's something like, oh, damage to paralyzed enemies, that was, like, a lot more damage. So, like, if you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll start using paralysis on enemies so I get this big damage bonus, that's not an Ultimate Alliance 3. It's now it's like 5% versus 3%
I was really
damage. Is a big
confused
deal.
playing this because it's like, which branch of Team Ninja got this game? Because it's not the Dissidia team.
It's the
which
Metroid Other M
ended
team.
up being the Muso team. It's the Metroid
No,
Other
it's
M
a pure
team?
guess on my part. I saw the only other Team Ninja game I know
As
personally.
someone who is currently playing Metroid Other M,
Right now?
yes, I am. I mean, I am playing through Metroid Other M on twitch.tv/arbitrarywater. And my feelings on that game are shockingly, it plays fine.
Yeah, just the whole character.
Shame about
Yeah,
whenever a
that's-
cutscene happens. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the most shocking thing about Ultimate Alliance 3 is it just doesn't feel good
No.
to play at all. I don't
No.
understand how they messed it up so bad. Like,
So
light attacks feel like they
Yeah.
have no impact. Again, the heavy attacks don't chain into anything, but like Captain America has like
Yeah.
his heavy attack is throwing his shield. And it's like, oh, it's like one of my favorite things to do in games where you can play as him, because like that's an interesting combat dynamic, potentially an interesting combat dynamic. But it's just so clunky and slow, and even against a normal guy, not like, oh, this is one of Mephisto's demons. Like, no, it's like an AIM soldier, like some random fucking goon who any Marvel character can defeat in hand-to-hand combat, no problem. I have to throw the shield probably charitably 6 times at him to kill one
Yes.
guy, and there's like 20 guys, so it's just a slog.
It
it's
is
not going to kill me either, but I'm not. I can't hit all of them.
It is visually cacophonous in a way those old games could sometimes get, but all the time, because they are throwing a Muso level of dudes at you, and until you charge up your screen clearing attacks, you are just kind of, as you said, awkwardly mashing against these enemies with moves that don't really flow together very well. I think that's how I would describe it. Like, there's a very stuttery quality to at least all of the heroes I played as. Spider-Man, but also Miles Morales, and also Spider-Gwen, because that movie was
that
really
was
good.
Strange decision. Also, this like this. The first level is like the intro where he plays the Guardians of the Galaxy. So you're like, oh, it's like a varied selection, and then the next level it's like on the raft, like the superhuman prison, and you get all the Spider-Men at the same time who have not the same but very similar
And
movesets
Venom.
as the team. Yeah, and Venom. Like,
So yes, you get.
you don't want to show
quadruple the
some more
Spiders,
variety?
man.
There's tons of characters. I mean, like, I know the problem is they don't play that differently to each other. Like,
No.
I can't elucidate on how it feels different to play Daredevil, who is a guy who's good at martial arts, versus
Yeah.
Black Panther, a guy with cutting edge technology and superhuman abilities. Like, it's the same.
As a brawler, I think it's one of those things where it made me question, like, do I want to go back to those old games? But I think the thing with those older games is they are trying less, right? They do not have as many enemies on screen. They are limited by the technology of the Xbox 360, or
I know the
guess
PS2 version
technically
of
the
Ultimate Alliance
PS2.
1.
Yeah.
That was fine.
Yeah. And what you're left with is, it feels like a game that should have come out 15 years earlier. Like, it feels worse than Ultimate Alliance 1 and X-Men Legends.
Yeah, and that, like, X-Men Legends is a game that had like way more RPG trappings.
Yeah.
It seems like it should be less refined, but no, it's more fun.
X-Men Legends still A-okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's way too much equipment
Yeah.
in that
Yeah,
game. Like,
yeah.
they overdid it in Ultimate Alliance 1 and especially 2, but like, I mean, do you need to change the belts on the X?
Yeah.
There's so many X-Men. You can't be equipping all their belts for them.
They're like 15 characters.
Look,
in
if
that
I
game.
can't choose individual socks and have asymmetrical socks on my X-Men, then there's no fucking point in playing.
Oh, they don't show up. Come on, Castle, please. The equipment doesn't. They're not going to at least give you that.
I ain't
Please.
wearing unmatched socks, bub.
I was somewhat surprised at how poorly paced the game was, because the different chapters in the previous games, every chapter introduces a new character, a new enemy type, a new this, a new that, and the spacing on your new allies is comically bad. So you get your first batch of characters, and then chapter 1, you get Nebula and Ronan.
You fight them,
but
yeah.
they're the only allies that join you there. And then
They're
chapter
enemies.
2, nothing
No.
other than like, no, wait, that's the Sinister Six level.
Yeah, when you are on the raft, the game immediately just throws, like, it's very funny because the character select screen just looks like the Smash Bros. Select screen. And it shows you how big the list of characters is. And it's like, oh, finally. And it's a weird eclectic mix of, like, here are all of the MCU standbys, Why else would Falcon be in here? And then it's like, oh, but don't worry, we got some weird picks. We've got one Inhuman.
Yeah, I mean, and like Elsa Bloodstone, I
Yeah.
guess, is kind of fun.
Yes,
But
Elsa Bloodstone's a deep cut.
yeah, but then like
The
what's
Jessica
that?
Jones in this one looks like the Netflix Jessica Jones, not the MCU, but I guess, it's still all the same thing.
To be fair, Daredevil saying I do my best fighting in hallways is
Yeah.
actually pretty good.
So,
Yeah.
And actually, that level too has a scene where you go into like a sort of silhouette, like
Yes.
silk screen part, and that was actually legitimately kind of, I mean, interesting looking. It played the same,
Yeah.
but that bit was fun, and they bothered to come up with an explanation for like how is like someone with cosmic power able to punch Kingpin and he can survive. It's like, oh, that like crappy accessory item you get, it's called like ISO 8 or something. Like that's what these people have that lets you like survive punching, because it was weird in Ultimate Alliance 1 when you do a simulator fight against Mysterio and you finish it and Black Widow's like, oh, your chances weren't so good. It's like, I have Doctor Strange on my team who actually does magic. This guy is a stage magician. It shouldn't be a problem at all. What are you talking about? The simulator needs to be fixed then.
Yeah, but could they?
Because this
beat
is a
Goku?
normal man.
We gotta bring it back to the Comic Vine forums.
so how many...
Chris understands
Yeah, I
that
get
joke.
that. How many of you played the Black Order expansion pack for this game?
Yeah,
Yep.
there are 3 expansion packs. I see they added everyone's favorite Lord, King, God,
Yeah,
Morbius.
Morbius is in the game now.
They put
At least
Morbius
it was
in the
before the
DLC.
movie. It's not as bad as when they put Morbius in, God, what was it?
Midnight Suns.
Yeah, and Midnight Suns is post-launch, like, DLC after
That's
the movie.
adorable.
But, like,
Yeah.
the first two
Midnight Suns
packs
is
are... The first 2 packs for Ultimate Alliance don't have any story. They're just like, here's simulator, like, arena missions. And if you do well enough on them, you can, like, unlock and add these characters to your roster permanently. And then the third one actually has a plot. And it's like, oh, now Doctor Doom wants the Infinity Stones now to defeated Thanos. Hilariously early on, like, Doctor Strange shows up to, like, the Midnight Suns, like, fighting off a bunch of monsters. And he's like, gentlemen, I need your help. And it's like, I mean... Like, it's cool to have these characters, but I can't imagine it's like, oh, Dr. Doom's here. Now we need the Punisher to help us. We have people from space and mages and superheroes, and now we need the Punisher, a man with gun. Like, if he just happened to be there, that would be one thing, but specifically recruiting that guy doesn't... That's just weird. Why would you need him for anything? And he's not that good, actually,
You
also.
need Frank Castle to inspire legions of cops to...
Yeah, get the cops on your side in case you run into any of them in the course
Yeah.
of a mission.
Yeah, when I think about the Punisher, I think about how the Punisher is about how cops should be able to shoot people. I'm pretty
Except
sure
he shoots
that's what
cops
the
that
writers
also
were
believe
intending.
that, so like, it's... Yeah, man. And, just like how in the main game you fight... What's that?
I'm not enough of a comic book person to go down the hole of discussing the ways various writers have interpreted the Punisher.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
his
it's the same as like
politics.
every fucking superhero thing
Yeah.
when it's like, oh, this inspires like people to be vigilantes. Like, oh, it's a fantasy setting where they wish that people in power would do
Yeah.
something to help them, and or it's media analysis, like
Yeah.
etc. But what's not really open to much interpretation is the fact that in the main game you fight into the bottom, like the tombs of Wakanda, and when you reach the villain there, you get teleported to another place. And then the first thing you do in the DLC is fight to the bottom of the tombs in Wakanda and then get teleported to another place.
Oh, great.
It's like, oh, you liked visiting the negatives or the dark dimension in the first game? Would you like to go to the negative zone? Which is...
Big difference
Like-
between those two concepts.
It's the science place instead of the magic place, you see.
I-
Oh, and now the Fantastic Four can join you. Badass.
Oh, hey, there are some people who are not me who love the Fantastic Four.
I'd love to
I just
meet
think
them.
that's
one of
such a
these
contrast.
days. I'd love to find one of them out in the wild.
So are you saying you would play this game over Marvel's Avengers by Crystal Dynamics or not?
Okay. I mean, I haven't played that one because it didn't look good from the outset, but having watched people play it, playing as like the more martial arts focused characters seems like this could have been a solid basis for a game. They need to build on it more. But that could have been something. Which
I
is
just
never
wanna
true of
say-
Ultimate Alliance 3.
I just want to say that Crystal Dynamics, Square Enix's Eidos's Crystal Dynamics' Marvel's Avengers, cost me $5 before they delisted it. This game cost
So I mean, it has
me-
that going for it.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
at some
that's-
point, I'm going to force one of these chucklefucks to play it with me.
It's that aside, like the Nintendo tax thing. It's
Whereas, yes, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is a game that is 5 years old, has some real Nintendo tax on it.
yeah, it's a Switch exclusive still to this day, and
Also,
the fact
it's a
that
Switch
it's that
exclusive,
and it runs like not
mostly
good
fine,
at all. Like I guess, yeah, like the default doesn't feel good,
but
then it drops performance like that too.
it'll get choppy when a bunch of guys show up, and yeah, it does not feel responsive in the way that I want a game like that to. Even as like a Muso, it's not doing its job, because the one thing that Muso games do really, really well is let you clear groups of guys by pressing buttons and watching flashing lights and colors happen.
Yeah, and their Muso games on Switch all run better than Ultimate Alliance
Yes.
now. Like, yeah, after some patching, it took some work,
I
but
should, yeah,
they all do.
should play that
Where's
second
Orchard 4
Fire
Ultimate
Emblem.
on Switch? Kicks ass.
I should play that second Fire Emblem Muso. But yes, thank you, Sid, for not only reminding me this game existed, but ensuring that I will continue to not actually play any of the games of 2024 that I've bought and wanted to play. Oh, God. Does anyone have any closing thoughts on Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order? Okay, I just fundamentally, tonally, philosophically, find it to be a disappointment.
Yeah, they had that game Marvel Heroes that was kind of similar, but that looked like it was a lot more fun.
Marvel
And-
Heroes is a game that the sick people who played Diablo swear was one of the best one of those. But then, Disney did the Disney and shut it down.
Can't have too much.
I think one of the last things they did is last things they got is David Hayter to play the Winter Soldier. It's like, wow, it's perfect casting. Oh, it's gone forever. Okay.
Don't worry, fan servers will fix that.
Well, they require having fans first, I think. But
Marvel Heroes, a lot of people like Marvel
do
Heroes.
they?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
They did,
doing
yeah.
shockingly well. I guess not shockingly well. They made
Yeah.
one of those and then said, "Hey, you don't like that stuff of that other game, which will go unnamed? Yeah, we don't do
And
that."
then Disney's like,
And we have
this
Marvel
isn't like the
characters. Have fun.
movies. Shut it all down.
It's a hell of an industry that we're
So-
occupying right now. It's a hell of a time to be
Yeah.
in the business
Yeah.
of covering these enterprises and their
Yes.
output.
Yes. Yeah. Shout outs to the people trying to get Marvel Heroes fan servers off the ground, because it seems like they have made some progress. It doesn't sound like it's fully playable yet.
Yeah. Well, once it's 95% ready, they'll announce that, and then they'll get the cease and desist.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait
Hooray!
for them to get the C&D.
Also, Nintendo, this podcast totally did not make
No.
reference to emulation.
Once again,
in any way,
Nintendo,
shape,
I
or
bought
form.
this
Don't come
game
for my
from a
kneecaps.
GameStop in my mall.
Don't worry, Nintendo. None of us played Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 above 20 FPS, as you envision.
As God intended, I play all of my Nintendo games at a questionable 720p that sometimes drops to 640p, just like Miyamoto intended. But let's rank these motherfuckers. You can find our list of ranked video games at bit.ly/OTDE rank. Once again, bit.ly/OTDE rank. So at the top of our list, we have Might and Magic 6: The Mandate of Heaven, Suikoden, and Xenosaga Episode 1. At the bottom of the list, thanks to a certain them of the Bad Game Hall of Fame, we have Descent to Undermountain at 64, Hoshiwo Mirohito at 63, and then This Isn't Your Fault, Cass, Unlimited Saga at 62.
Well, little did you know, actually, I was responsible for developing a little game by the name of Unlimited. Now, I wish I could have that kind
Oh
of
no,
credit.
Akitoshi Kawazu, it was you all along.
I'm a wily guy.
You love AD&D, but specifically the weird anachronistic parts of AD&D.
Yeah, Cass has all the compromise on the other developers at Square Enix that lets them keep making Saga games.
Saga Emerald Beyond came out this year. That game, at some point I'll play that game, because apparently one of the characters' mechanics is collecting cats, and if you collect too many cats, they get a bad ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was based on a personal
strange
story. Like I
series.
said, because I'm responsible for the original game. That was my idea as my sort of self-insert character.
I adopted one cat and had a panic attack shortly thereafter.
So you can see how it's based in draws from real life.
Yeah, it's based in real life.
Speaking of cats,
Garfield.
Yeah, we have this Garfield.
So we're starting at the bottom and then working our way top. Is it better or worse than Descent to Undermountain?
Better.
Cass? Yeah,
Better.
we can go up.
I mean, I also think that
ranks.
Descent to Undermountain should be higher up on this list, but I'm also a sicko, so.
Okay, so let's go up a couple of steps.
Well, I
Cass,
also like
is this
Virtual
better or
Highlight
worse than
too,
Virtual
so-
Highlight?
I mean, I like Virtual Highlight.
I think that Virtual.
How many points is the game being made in an engine for the genre?
I think
it is?
actually
Unlike
I'm gonna
Descent
pick
to Undermountain,
Virtual Highlight,
Virtual Highlight.
because I think Virtual Highlight's more fun and is
Sure, I'll grant you
funnier
that for
than
amusement factor, for
Garfield.
entertainment purposes.
But
I
okay,
think
okay,
you'll get
Cass,
more
then
mileage
hear
out
me
of
out
Virtual
here.
Highlight.
Does Virtual Highlight invite an annoying developer to a Garfield game that shall go unnamed?
No, you're
that
right.
then
You
gets to
are
be
right
banned
about
from
that
Discord?
one. That does frame things in a certain way, doesn't it?
There are no people who will pop into your Virtual Highlight stream and be like, "Hey, you should play this with me."
Well, we don't
Imagine,
know.
though.
It could be what's the name of the guy? I wrote the whole article on Virtual Highlight. I can't remember the name of the guy who was responsible for Highlight.
Mr. TNE.
Yeah, we'll go with that for now. But you know what? Yeah, I'll say
Jim the
put it
Knight.
below Virtual Highlight. I'd concede a 58.
right.
You know what? This gets to the point. Braden, is it better or worse than Secret of the Stars? It's above Secret of the Stars, right?
It's above Secret
Let's
of
just
the
put
Stars.
it immediately below Virtual Highlight. I think it's
Okay.
better
You know,
than
to its
Towers.
credit,
Okay.
It won't waste your time. So even if you don't like
Yeah.
you won't like it for very long.
Okay.
Okay, my game. I think we just immediately start. Is it better than Secret of the Stars?
Yeah.
Because they're both incompetently made JRPGs.
Cass, have you ever played Secret of the Stars?
Not as of yet.
Okay. You should play that. That is bad game
What
Hall
if
of Fame
the
worthy.
Tecmo Bowl people tried to make a Dragon Quest and didn't know what the fuck
They tried to
were
make a
doing?
Dragon Quest. They were given 6
Yeah. I
months.
I can only imagine it going well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good, and not
Is Bo
one
Jackson?
of the
No.
most insane.
God, I don't know, Braden. What do you think? Would you rank that game above or below Secret of the Stars? Because that feels like the right spot,
I would
right?
rank this below Aiden.
Gross, but
Chronicles.
above OG Highlight.
Yeah.
That's the
Regular
Super
highlight
Ninten-
is
that
filled
is
with
that
hate.
the Super Nintendo Highlight?
No, it's the
Ah,
NES
fuck yeah,
highlight.
it goes above it. Holy shit, that game was terrible.
Tokihiro
our new
Naito.
number 60.
That's the name of the Highlight guy.
Oh god,
Thank you,
that
highlight
NES
man.
Highlight. Holy shit.
Is he the T of T&E Soft?
Yeah, I believe so.
But
No.
they knew how to make some golf games sometimes. Even
Yeah.
though they
Yeah,
just
Virtual Highlight. Check it
basically
out.
made the same game like 18 times. All right, Braden, where are we putting Battle Spire?
So I would put this game, personally,
I'm-
I would rank this game barely above, let's say, Ultima 9.
Boy,
Because here's the thing, I could foresee myself playing through it on stream, like in its
yeah,
entirety
like,
as
Ultima
a goof.
9's like 100 hours.
Yeah. Battlespire seems like it might be closer to 20.
Can you build a bridge made of bread in Battlespire to cross a bunch of borders and beat the
No.
game faster? Well.
Better luck next time, developers.
Of the games we played this year, Ultima 9 is definitely one of the most tragic. Genuinely.
A depression factory.
We've played a lot of garbage this year and played relatively few games that made us happy. Which is why for our previous episode we just picked a game that we both played this year and said, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Scald Against the Black Priory. Very good.
So would you put it below or above that? You said.
I would put... I'd put it below Ultima 9, I guess.
Okay.
That's where I would put it. Do you have any input on this?
Ultima 9...
is at 37, and below that is Adventure.
I think I would play Zelda 2 over Battlespire.
Okay.
But I would play Battlespire more than
Alright.
Metabots.
Then that's our new number 39.
What's a good hypothetical for Sid for this Ultima, or not Ultima, Marvel game?
Ultima, it's Alliance.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. Bop It Alliance. I mean, put it below any game that aimed high, because this game didn't. It wasn't very
Okay.
ambitious.
Anachronox.
Sid, have
Okay.
you ever played Quest 64?
I've been present at two Quest 64 being played on real hardware. Does that count?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I wouldn't put this above. I wouldn't put this below Quest 64. That's mean. I would, however, want to play this game less than most of the games
yellow.
in the 30s.
I would play Bahamut Lagoon before this.
That game has nice sprite art. It's interesting.
It's got ideas, TM. Like a lot of late era SNES games from Square, it has ideas.
How about Time and Eternity?
Ooh.
Classic.
I'd rather play Time and Eternity.
Yeah, also Time and Eternity has music by Yuzo Koshiro. So.
Yeah,
but it's also
Time
it's
and
also got
Eternity.
very
Something good's
questionable
gonna
art.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, our Time and Eternity pod, another great game we played this year.
Okay, how about
Time and Eternity.
wait? We're talking about tying games. Okay, how about this? The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age.
I vaguely remember that game.
My ex liked Lord of the Rings, so I sat in on her playing that a lot, and that was a strange one. I mean, one, because it's like, what if the people from the movies, but not?
What if the people from the
functionally
movies,
the same group
but
of people
not,
did
while
it?
also playing the literal film for the cutscenes?
Also, it had a
And
weird
then-
balance thing where the game seemed pretty tough, but if you go back and just try to grind up your skills one time, the game becomes pathetically easy.
Yes, that's correct.
Which, on the other hand, that is better than Ultimate Alliance, where you're never this much stronger than your enemies the whole game, so everything takes forever.
Okay,
and never
Yeah.
then
changes.
if you want to go, so you want to go below the Third Age? Okay.
Yeah, put it
So below the
Age.
Third Age
Okay.
is then Tower of Draga.
Or no, it's Legacy
Oh,
of the
okay.
Wizard.
Oh, I'm looking at the GBA.
Yeah,
one,
you're
sorry.
looking at the GBA tactics thing that is
Yeah,
real
Legacy
dog shit.
of the Wizard uses the idea of having a team of people with different abilities better than Ultimate Alliance.
Maybe it does go below Quest.
Brian has that
64.
little fun animation of him speeding up as he starts running. That's pretty cute. you know?
I feel like this is going to be the one that gets people to write in,
Really?
but I will allow it.
I don't think there are defenders for this game. I think that people who liked the Ultimate...
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
that
other
people
side.
who liked Ultimate
Yeah, I guess-
Alliance
I guess
actually
not. I
hate
don't
this
feel like-
game because they viewed it as some sort of betrayal.
I don't feel like I heard shit about this
Basically,
game.
was sent out...
Oh yeah, I look back at the critical reception and people are like, oh, it's fun, but it's nothing special. I'm like, it's not fun though. Like,
It's-
what did
yeah,
all these
no,
reviewers
it's not.
play?
It's like
Aren't these the people who
those-
don't like Dynasty Warriors? Why do they
no,
like
those games by Raven, X-Men Legends 1 and 2 and Marvel Ultimate Alliance are like really solid, colorful brawlers from that
Yeah.
era that, you know, have like fun deep cuts for Marvel bullshit.
Yeah.
And this is just like, hey, remember the MCU?
I mean, kind of.
wish I didn't.
Even then,
But
it's just it's.
well, yeah. All right,
We're doing it. Pull the
I'm
trigger.
gonna put Marvel Ultimate Alliance below Quest 64.
Okay. I feel
right.
good.
I'm fine
I feel
with that.
good.
I feel $47 lighter.
Hey, and if you are a Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 defender and you want to write in, we will forward this to the Bad Game Hall of Fame cast and Sid, because we want to know.
Yeah, I would like to know and put your name on
I
the
also
list.
Where are you?
I have a great news for you that there's this whole genre. They call it like action RPGs or beat 'em ups. Like you played one that's sort of both, but like you're gonna be thrilled to find out there's like a ton of these.
Yeah, no one tell these people about any action RPG from the last 10 years with
I
responsive
knew a
combat.
guy who thought
When you
Titan
play a
Quest
second
was
video
their
game-
favorite game of all time, and I thought they were weird.
Look, I saying that like jokingly, but now I remember that there are a lot of people who played Devil's Third because they liked Splatoon as a multiplayer shooter, and so they're like, "Oh my god, there's more of these! Oh, this is great!"
Those people, no sir, no thank you.
It's like, "Oh, this is great! There's more multiplayer
fuck, dude.
shooters!
We just had to
Awesome!
talk
Oh, this
about
one has
Devil's
blood in it! This is so cool!"
God, I'm gonna have to play that.
You don't have to, but
You're
I'm
going
doing
to. I
I'm
understand.
doing the gauntlet of dubious character action, and it's basically Wanted Dead before Wanted Dead was
well,
Wanted
same
Dead.
developers.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it kind of is.
No, it's the
isn't
same
it?
exact developers.
yeah.
Oh, fuck! That makes too much.
Say for one,
Totally
say
every-
for the lead guy that the people know.
Yeah.
Dead or
Yeah,
Alive.
Yes,
Noted
well,
piece of
Tomonobu
shit.
Itagaki,
Yeah, Itagaki.
But otherwise,
Yeah.
that
Noted
game
NFT
was
warrior.
pitched in meetings as the spiritual successor to Devil's Third.
Okay, that explains everything about
Yeah.
that game.
Weird how Team Ninja
Except
got
for the
better
part
when
where you sing 99
person left
Luftballons.
their company or studio. Weird.
Yeah, funny that.
Weird. Not weird. I think he didn't fully go
All
bankrupt
right.
this year, but he got pretty close. I think.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
and fuck him and whatever NFT bullshit he was working on.
Yeah, I think it's the second
if-
studio
what
in
if
a
you
row
want
where
the
he
boobs
opened
to be
it and
jiggly
didn't
in
finish
the video
anything.
game?
Well, set your age to 99,
I have
my
great
friend.
news. Team Ninja has gone on to continue to innovate in breast jiggle technology.
That's true, actually. I mean, I've mentioned on the Bad Game Hall of Fame podcast that I was playing Monster Hunter Rise. That's a game where like you have to get very specific armors to have big boobs, whereas in Neo 2, I just put on a piece of armor on my character
DOA team
that just gave her
exactly in a
gigantic
good
breasts.
spot
I'm
either,
like, yeah,
eh?
finally.
Yeah, but it's okay because in Neo 2 I gave my character big honkers.
All right.
And it's like, yeah, it's an homage to all my friends.
Okay.
And then and
So that's the pod.
that's a thank you everyone for coming
Oh, really?
to the podcast.
You're very welcome. I hope that our gift was received warmly.
Yes. Thank you, Sid, for joining us. Cass, where can people find you?
We rerun that Bad Game Hall of Fame. You can check out badgamehalloffame.com or twitch.tv/Bad Game Hall of Fame, or even the Bad Game Hall of Fame on YouTube. You know, places where video is served.
Yeah. I like your streams.
Thank you kindly.
Sid, where can people find you?
Sometimes on Bad Game Hall of Fame streams, and in the server, the Discord server for that. I guess I post on Blue Sky at BeamSplashX. It's a username I came up with in high school, and it's never been taken on any website, so I never stopped using it.
I can't
me
relate to
everywhere.
that as arbitrary water.
That sounds like it could have been made by a college student.
No,
on, like,
I was
BeamSplashX.
15, and it was one of the randomly generated names on Xbox Live when I was making my Xbox Live account. And now I am a 32-year-old man, and this is my life.
But yeah, you can find me around on various websites. I do have a podcast 0 to 2 episodes a year, so it's really easy to keep up with. If everything goes well, I might actually get another episode out this year. We Thought About Games. Just you go to wethougtaboutgames.com and that'll redirect you to the blog that has all the episodes, of which there are 9. So, real easy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris, for joining me as always. And thank you, the listener at home. And we wish you a very Merry Kusolstice. Thank you to Super Sex 420 for the theme song. There's no such thing as cheating in a single-player game. Goodbye. And I'm going to hit stop record.